Hello everyone, this is Dr. Basanti Devi. Today's topic is social linguistics. In fact, uh, I'm going to continue with what I talked last time. Last time uh, when I talked, that is in social linguistics part one, I tried to explain what social linguistics is, and I also elaborated on two very comprehensive definitions of social linguistics. I emphasized on the fact that language varies depending on various factors. I also, I think, briefly said something about dialects. So dialect is one kind of variation, but there are different types of variations of any language, and these variations are caused by different factors. We can summarize these factors in the following way. Number one, the roles of the participants in a conversation as well as the relationship between them. Roles of the participants in a conversation or any discussion or any interaction, their roles as well as their relationship. So what do I mean by that? See, now is the conversation between a teacher and a student. Is the teacher talking or the student talking? Okay, so the roles, the role of the teacher and what is the role of the other one participant? Let's say he or she is a student. And is the conversation between father and son? Is it between mother and son or mother and daughter? Is it between husband and wife? Is it between daughter in law and father in law? So the relationship between them is also important. Depending on that, language can vary. Now, for example, when a student talks to a teacher, uh, the student is very careful about his or her words. He or she will not use any informal word. He or she will use formal words. He or she will use formal style. Okay, and if it is, let us say, if it is between father and son, they are not equals. Okay, they are not equals. If then what will happen? I mean, how will they talk? The father may talk in an authoritative way, but the son may talk in a modest, docile way. That may not always happen, but this is what generally happens. Now, when a daughter in law talks to her father in law, she will uh, talk to him using a tone which shows respect to him. Okay. And she also will be careful about the words that she chooses. She will not choose any bad word or any unparliamentary word. She will use words which are which can show respect to the father-in-law. So it depends to a great extent what is the what are the roles of the participants. That is to say, are they students, are they teachers, are they lawyers, are they professors, are they workers, etc., etc. So these are so they are the roles, the roles they play. Now, for example, is it a worker or an employer? So depending on that, language will vary. The second important factor is nature of the participants. What do I mean by nature of the participants? That is their socioeconomic status, their profession, gender, etc. There may be many other sub factors. There may be many other sub factors, but mainly socioeconomic status, their profession, gender, etc. So how does socioeconomic status uh, you know influence language used by the speaker? Now let us say uh, I can give you a very good example from British English. Okay, so British English has uh, uh, there are several social dialects, but the two important dialects are RP English, that is RP. RP, it stands for received pronunciation. Okay, and and there is another variety which is diametrically opposed to RP. That is called Cockney. Okay, what is RP? RP is the most sophisticated, most refined form of language which is used by the the elite class people of London. And this elite class includes the royal family, the queen, and the other members of the royal family. They cannot use Cockney. No, they in public they cannot use any unrefined language. They have to use this particular variety, which is known as RP. So that is why RP is also known as Queen's English. Now, what is Cockney? Cockney is spoken by the lower class people, people who are the street people, the street vendors, etc. These people speak a variety of English which is very different syntactically. First of all, it is very different phonetically because some of the sounds are not found in Cockney English. I mean, some of the sounds which are found in standard British English are not found in Cockney English. So, it differs at phonetic level. It differs as at phonological level. It differs at morphological as well as syntactic level. Moreover, there is also difference at the level of intonation. Intonation is also very different. Okay, so that means suprasegmental features, what we call the term. I'm sure you know what is meant by suprasegmental features. So Cockney English differs from, RP English at suprasegmental. I mean at the level of suprasegmental features. Okay, so socioeconomic status uh, has great influence on the language used by the speaker. Then their profession. What is their profession? Okay. Is the speaker a professor? Is the speaker a religious preacher? Is the speaker a judge? Is the speaker a mason? Is the speaker a street vendor? So this decides the variety of language. I mean, the profession decides the variety of language that is spoken by these speakers. And then gender. There has been a lot of research all over the world on gender related variation of language. Research has shown that there are gender related variations, that is to say men and women speak slightly differently. Okay, they prefer to use certain vocabulary differently. That is to say, men use certain words which women do not like to use. Similarly, women use certain words which men do not like to use. Now, for example, you will hear girls or women will say, when they see something, let us say a girl sees a very beautiful, very, a very attractive baby. They will mean, oh, so cute, so sweet. But man will not use, because if a man will never use the word cute, because they feel that it's a feminine word, it's not a masculine word, so therefore they will not use, they will reject it. So gender, and this is not I mean, this is not all. There are many uh, um more examples of gender related variations of language. They are seen across the world in all the languages. Okay, then the third important factor is the function. Now, function or purpose of a particular conversation or interaction. What is its function? Because you might have heard the term speech act. That is to say, we are going to study that when we study pragmatics. So what is a speech act? So it is believed, it is believed, or it is claimed that, it's not believed, it is claimed that when we say something, it is an act. So it performs actually several facets of, like there are several facets of what we say. So it's an act. First of all, the articulation of this itself is an act. Then it serves some purpose. Okay. So what purpose does it serve? What speech act does it have? Now, is it an is it a request? Is it a request for information? Are you requesting somebody for information? And if that is so, then you will use a kind of language which you will not use when you casually talk to your friends. No, it will be a formal, uh, it will be a formal request. That means you will use formal language. Now, for example, there sometimes there is a communication, government to government communication. For example, the government of India wants some information from the government of, let us say, France. So regarding, let us say, some terrorist activity, so there is some information becomes very crucial, and that information can be given by only a country like, only France. So how will the government of India request? The government of India cannot order. There is a particular way. I too do not know exactly what kind of language is used, but there is a formal uh, there is a formal way of requesting for information from another government. So that's the function. So depending upon the function or purpose, language will differ. Now, are you asking for a favor? If you are asking for a favor, then you have to be polite, right? You cannot be impolite. You cannot order. When you ask for a favor, you cannot order. You have to be polite. You have to make a request. So your language will be what? Polite. So you will use a different. You will use another kind of style, right? Then what is the function? Is it persuasion? So what is persuasion? Persuasion is the act of convincing an individual or a party to accept your view. Okay. uh, Accept your view, or view, that is, you should be able to convince that person to act uh, by accepting your view. Okay, let us say the person has to the person has to uh, give up something. There is, let us say, there is some kind of conflict regarding some possession. So you have you want to have it, so you have to persuade that person. So that person, so language of persuasion is, again, it has to be very, very diplomatic. You cannot state it directly. It is indirect. You have to use diplomatic language. There are, again, certain principles which govern diplomatic language. What kind of language is called diplomatic language? So in diplomatic language, as they say, that you reveal very less, but your results should be much more than what you reveal. Okay, you don't so diplomatic so it is, again, there is a certain let us say negotiations take place between two countries. So it happens that why do we have the diplomats? What is the job of the diplomats? See, for example, our country has ambassadors in many other countries. Now, what is their job? They are called diplomats. So they have to negotiate certain things, and they do it in a diplomatic way. They don't do it, handle it directly. So, I mean, they don't talk directly. So diplomatic languages again is very interesting. Uh, then, so in order to persuade somebody, you have to use diplomatic language. The next is medium. Uh, so what is the medium? Is it speech or writing? Uh, like when you are trying to say something, are you uh, is it oral, that is to say, is it speech, or you have used the writing mode? uh, if it is speech, then then you can afford to be a little casual, because when you say, supposing now, right now my it is speech. So when I see, interestingly, we have language has complete feedback, right? So I can hear what I am saying, and I know now last 15-20 minutes when I have talked, many a times I have made slight grammatical mistakes, but immediately I have corrected it. So in speech we can afford to be uh, a little careless. I don't mean to say that we should be careless or we can be careless. No, it is not the point. But sometimes, inadvertently, with the inadvertently, that is to say, unintentionally, we may make some mistakes. These are called, you must be knowing, the difference between competence and performance. So there may be certain performance errors. uh, any human being is likely to make these performance errors. So in speech, uh, we can afford to be a little casual, so when, because we have the opportunity to correct it. And supposing, mm, you know uh, the listeners are there right in front of the speaker, so listener can also point out. So therefore, uh, we can do that, that is to say, if it is speech, we can always correct. So therefore, we need not be so very careful. But if it is writing, you write something and then you post it somewhere, you print it. Okay, it may be in the form of a book, it may be in the form of an article, it may be in the form of class notes. So the writer has to be extremely careful. Why? Because the reader is not right in front of the writer. The By the time the it goes from the writer to the reader, and uh, and the time when the writer gets a feedback, a lot of time will have elapsed. So its correction at that point may not be feasible, and many a times that mistake continues for ages. Okay, so therefore, it also depends a lot on what is the medium. Is it speech or writing? Again, is it scripted speech? uh, it can be a scripted speech. What is a scripted speech? For example, a paper in a seminar. Okay, a paper in a seminar can be called a scripted speech. Or sometimes politicians address people and then they bring a speech written by somebody and then they read it out. So there again, the style, there will be some variation in the style. Okay. Then another point is the speech reinforced by gesture? Speech, uh, It is not that everybody makes gestures while speaking, but there are some people who make gestures. Uh, so when you make gestures while speaking, so what happens is that the listeners get two kinds of cues. That is to say, they hear the word, they also see the gesture. So therefore, it becomes easy for the listener as well as the speaker to communicate. I mean, the uh, communication can take place in a much better way. Okay. The next important point is subject matter of a discourse or discussion. So, what is it? What is the topic? What is the topic which is being talked on? Is it about some scientific? Is it about some scientific topic? Is it a topic related to sports? Is it a topic related to art or religion? So, depending on that, language will vary. Okay. Uh, how? Just I'll give you one simple example. Now, if you read a history textbook, okay, there are certain words which will come, which will appear in the text repeatedly. Some of the common words are, let us say, king, okay, kingdom, then war, defeat, loss, battle, and these are some of the words which will occur very frequently in history textbooks. Okay, but you will not find these words in some scientific topic. You will not find these words in a topic related to religion or sport or art. So this kind of variation is called actually register. So depending on the subject matter of discourse or discussion, the style, there is some variation in the language. The next important point is number of participants. How many participants are there uh, in a conversation? How many participants are there in a conversation? For example, sometimes just two people talk face to face. Is it that two people are talking face to face? If that is the case, then uh, it will be different from different from the speech by a single person or by an individual, not single person, by an individual addressing a large audience. See, when an individual addresses a large audience, there is a lot of pressure on him or her. There is a lot of pressure. What kind of pressure? Because the person has to be what? Correct. Person has to be to the point. The person cannot relax. The person has to be alert all the time. Okay. Uh, but when two people talk face to face, there is there is room for some kind of relaxation. The speakers need not be very alert. Okay. Then next is setting. What is a setting? Is it is it a public setting? That is to say, you are talking in a public place, okay, in a meeting, or maybe anywhere. It's public, not school or college. Or is it private? That is to say, you are talking between friends, you are talking between your relatives at home, etc. So, is it a family get together or a formal gathering? If it's a family get together, then your language will be casual, okay? The informal, casual and informal. But if it's a formal gathering, then you cannot afford to use casual, informal language. You have to use formal language. Now, is the setting familiar or unfamiliar? And that will also determine your language. Supposing you have to speak in a very familiar setting, you will be relaxed, and that will determine the kind of language that you speak, the kind of intonation that you use. And if you are in an unfamiliar setting, again that will have an impact on your language, because you realize that you need to be careful. Then the last point that I want to make is the this is geographical and or regional setting also decides language variation. Simple example I'll give you. You all know that English has three major varieties. Three major. There are many other varieties, but the three major varieties are British English, American English, and Australian English. So these three varieties are caused by what? Geographical setting. There are differences. There are many differences between what? If you compare British English with Australian English, you will find many differences. If you compare British English with American English, you will find lots of differences. So regional or geographical setting also uh, influences language. I mean, it causes language variation. Now I am going to talk on the scope of sociolinguistics. First of